Welcome to the Charity Connector. Hosted by Dominic Fenton and produced by Grow Radio, we give you an insight into the hearts of charities making waves in our world.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the Charity Connector. I'm your host Dom Fenton and today we have our next guest. I'm so excited by having her on board with this podcast and the organisation that she represents. I do know a little bit about them, but I can't wait to get in a little bit deeper about what they're doing and what their plans are. So, hi Paula, how are you?
Oh, good morning. Thank you. Hi, Dom. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm great. Thank you very much.
I can't wait for us to get started. And we've had a bit of a chat just off air, just a little bit about what you're doing. Yeah, I'm very passionate about this organisation. So I'm really excited to delve a little bit deeper. So, Paula, for those who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself and the charity that you're representing?
Yep. So I'm Paula Timms. I'm Chief Executive. Really delighted and honoured to be Chief Executive of Kidscape, which is a bullying prevention charity. I've worked in the children's sector for 30 years now. I've grown up in the sector. I started in early years when I had children. And I now feel that I'm in a grown-up job now that my children are grown-ups, and I've done everything else in between, from secondary school to further education and family support to health and well-being. So it's been a really good journey. But Kidscape is a small but vital charity, very impactful, working across England and Wales in the anti-bullying field.
And this is the thing, obviously you've grown up within the sector. What made you go into it in the first place?
So I often get asked this. Essentially, when I left school on my 16th birthday. I went into banking because I wanted to earn some money and I was good with numbers. When I had my children around 10 years later, I realised that something was missing, that actually dealing with customers was great, but I didn't want to be in that corporate world. And I took some time out and actually looked after my children. And I got asked if I'd look after other children. So that led me onto a path of early years. And actually, my career has happened that way. Every so many years, I've come to a point where I've thought, actually, what else can I do? This isn't fulfilling me. And something else has come up. And I've gone for the opportunity. I'm a jump feet in first, think later kind of person, which can work. But it can also put you in places where you think, oh my gosh, what am I doing in this role? But it does mean that I've been able to, as doors have been opened for me by so many colleagues that I admire in the sector, I've gone from one thing to another. So I never actually started out to be a CEO as a bullying charity. And actually working 30 years in the sector, I never realised how prevalent bullying was. And I've worked with some really vulnerable families. I've worked in education. So I think it's a hidden problem.
Yeah, and I think it is. And I think, obviously, for those that don't know, the reason that obviously I'm so passionate about it is that I was bullied as well. So I was, again, one of those children. And I think actually, and it sounds really weird, and I've said this on other podcasts where I've appeared, I'm grateful for that experience I went through, because I'm now sat here opposite yourself, being able to talk about it. Whereas, unfortunately, so many young people are not now longer here. So actually, I'm really, in a weird way, I'm grateful because I am here and I can talk and I can go into schools and talk to them about the impact of bullying, or go into businesses and about the impact of bullying in staff and everything else. But I do think bullying is such a big issue.
It is. So what we know from research is that 1 in 4 children are bullied. And that can increase to 75% of children who are neurodiverse. And thank you for sharing that, Dom. That's actually really brave, because there's still such a stigma around bullying. And it's a shame that often people don't talk about bullying until they become adults and they're in a different place. And I guess you've got children and you feel a lot more secure and happy with your life. Because actually the way in which bullying impacts on you as a child or young person is it impacts on your self-esteem and your confidence, and it can cause anxiety, self-harm, and sometimes, unfortunately, suicide, like you say, so many children not here. But what people do tell us that have been bullied as a child that then go into roles where they help other people is, this has created me, this is part of me, this was part of my journey. And what children tell us is that they're bullied because they're different, and that difference is often the gift that they have. So whether they're particularly talented at sport, like yourself, you found
Mm,
rugby,
mm.
whether they're gifted in a different way, like music or in creative arts. You could be a boy that dances, a girl that plays football, and all because of the background, their culture, their religion, their ethnicity, LGBTQ plus. And unfortunately, we also know that prejudice-based bullying is increasing. So you can hit you. People do say it's sort of a rite of passage for children, but actually, it's really damaging. And if you are impacted by bullying, it can be quite traumatic.
Yeah, yeah, and I think as well, it's that moment of going, you don't, when you are being bullied a lot of the time, you don't want to appear weak. And
No.
actually, if you do speak out, then there might be something else that happens. But
Mm.
actually, and I say this in having suffered breakdowns in as an adult and everything else as well, we need to reach out. There is support out there, there is help out there. And this is why, for me, I'm so excited to have you on. In terms of the charity, so what sort of programs are you involved with? Who do you work? Obviously, I know you work with some schools and things like that.
Mm.
Who Talk to me about sort of how you do what you do, because I know what you do
Yeah.
and it is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dom. So we offer our whole remit is to offer hope and be helpful. So we provide, as you say, we reach out to those people. We're a safe place for people to contact to get help with bullying. And in fact, our top search is around how to make friends and what's a friendship, which I think for me encapsulates that point of what children are feeling when they're feeling bullied, and they don't always know the language or understand what's happening to them, but they just think that they internalize it, think that they can't make friends, think there's something wrong with them. So we offer that kind of hope, really. We go into schools, we provide whole school programs, we run classroom assemblies and training for teachers, as well as programs to children and people, where we look at the dynamics of bullying and what that is, and what kindness, creating cultures really of kindness and compassion, and celebrating differences in children, and how that all helps us. We also train the workforce, so we'll go in and train sort of club leaders, rugby leaders, sports leaders, because bullying can happen in community groups as well as in
Yeah.
schools. And we do also policy and campaigning work and talk out, especially we've delivered a couple of sessions recently around online bullying, cyberbullying, and how to prevent that. But we do lots of work with parents as well through our parent advice line. So we run a national helpline for parents to phone and get to seek out help, because when that's happening to you, you feel like your world has ended, you don't know where to go. Some schools have got some fantastic practices. Others find it really difficult because their resources aren't there, or their training's not there, or they find it difficult to navigate some complex situations of bullying. So we offer help and guidance to that as well. I think it's really important that we equip children with the skills. I've got some lived experience myself of mental health. And when it happened to me in the pandemic, I had never realised the amount I'd promoted self-help, employee assistance lines and counselling lines, and promotion of, I've always promoted self-help, health and well-being, self-care. When it happened to me, I was in crisis. And the only thing that I could do was pick up that phone and ring an employee advice line. And I think that's the thing, is giving people the tools so that when they're in crisis, they know what to do, because that could have been such a different story had I not had those tools available to me. So yeah, that's what we do, is we provide all that awareness raising, training, tools and equipment, and people can get help on our website. When you look at kidscape.org, you can sign in as a parent, a carer, a young person, or as a professional, and be signposted to the right help and support.
Wow. We'll break some of that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing as well. Because actually, we were talking beforehand about people sharing, and I just think it's so important, because it can happen to anyone.
It can.
Things like this can happen to anyone, and I think
Yeah.
the more we do say, actually, you know what, I was that person, and that's what I used to, I used to work for some schools, and I used to go into a secondary school and almost mentor, and they would just look at me and go, "But you don't know." And I said, "But no, honestly, I did, because actually I was you. Might have been 25 years ago, and actually a lot of things don't change from that. Yes, the cyberbullying's a lot different now, and obviously that's a whole new world that obviously we're sort of navigating as children are navigating, parents are navigating, adults are navigating, organizations are navigating. But actually, fundamentally, the bullying's still there.
Mm.
And I just think the more that we all come together and go, look, this is what we need to be doing, actually, children and young people feel a lot safer. And as you say, they'll be equipped with those sort of resources and the techniques. So talk to me about some of the techniques and things that you think, obviously, when you're going into schools. So what if a school were listening now, what could they expect from sort of a workshop, or a parent listening going, oh, actually, I like the forums, I like the chats. What could we sort of expect?
So schools can sign up for a couple of hours workshop where we'll come in and basically run a session. We also provide lots of lesson plans and resources on our website. So if school teachers want to run their own sessions, they can do that as well. They're all free to download, which is fantastic. So we know schools could be scrap cash resources. I think one of the most important thing I've learned since I've been at Kidscape in the last 9 months is it's really important to listen to what the child's telling you. Put that safeguarding lens on. Most people are very confident with their safeguarding approaches, but find bullying a little bit harder to break up and think about. But if you put that safeguarding lens on and believe what the child's telling you, what children are saying they find they struggle with the most is the impact of people not believing what's happening to them because there's no evidence. So one of the tips we teach children and parents is keep a little diary of what's happening, so that, because it's very hard to remember, especially if you're neurodiverse, it's hard to keep that kind of communication of what's happening to you and to rationalize what's happening. And it's easy to think, oh, it's just me. Actually, something's happening to you. Bullying is a behavior that's intended to hurt you, and it's often, repeated. And it can be by one person or a group of people. And there will always be people within that situation that are either innocent bystanders or contributing to that situation unwittingly. So it's important that you sort of keep diaries. And also, Dom, you shared with me that you found a love of rugby, really important for children and parents to think about what else is there outside of this bullying situation. So if the bullying situation is perhaps in school, speak to the school, try and get that pathway of communication open to try and help that situation. But, it's really important that children find other children that like the same things that they like. We talked earlier about finding your tribe, and lots of adults who've experienced bullying or survived bullying and talk about it now later in life say, it was when I found my place that I felt more confident, because it is all about raising your confidence as well of children. And bullying's a behaviour, and behaviour can change. So it's important to remember it's not going to be there forever. You can change the behaviours that are happening to you. You can move situation and tackle the person with that behaviour. There are things that can be done. It's important to remember that there are other options.
I love that. And as I say, it is a confidence thing, and it's so important finding your tribe, finding other people, because as I say, you might be dealing with one situation in school, and that might be one child, might be two children, might be a small group of children, but actually there's a whole another group of children who actually think you're an incredible young person, or an incredible adult, even, as if it's going on as an adult.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be that you're in a dance group. It could be that you like the geeky type things, and you're online, you've got an online group that loves all the same things that you like. And it's really important, something that we do as staff when we join Kidscape is we think about what we would tell our younger selves. So I was picked on a lot at school because my dad was in the army, So I moved around a lot. So it wasn't like sustained bullying because I was only ever anywhere for 6 to 12 months. I moved around a lot. But that did mean that I was always the new girl. I was getting picked on for whatever reason. I had the wrong uniform. I knew the wrong stuff because my syllabus was out of sync to everybody else's. I lived in Germany, came back to England, went to Wales, came back to England. My accent changed. I looked different. There was always a reason to pick on me. But like you, Dom, I realise now that I am the most empathetic person. And actually, one of my key qualities is kindness and empathy. And I've kind of made that into who I am and what I do in work. And I try and spread that across the professional world as well. So, what happened to me taught me to kind of like really value myself and being unique and being different. It's actually a bit of a quality that I bucked the trend, I broke rules, I didn't like to do what everyone else did in school. I got all the boys to wear skirts to school one day and all the girls to wear trousers because I didn't like the rule around girls not being able to wear trousers. And of course, here I am now in a very influential role, really, for children and young people. So lots of our ambassadors tell us the same kind of stories. Things happen to them, and now they're using those experiences in a really positive light. So yeah, it's remembering your value as children if you're going through this, and that you really are special to other people, and you've got something to really contribute. And life will move on. School won't last forever. Whatever the situation is, it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, I completely agree. What would you say to a parent who's hearing this at the minute and going, actually, I think my child's being bullied, or we're not sure yet, but
yeah. It's so hard as a parent. We do say to look out for the signs. We try and say, try not to get too emotionally connected because the first thing you want to do is protect your child. It's really important. On our website, we've got some great tips for parents around, as I say, keeping that diary, reassuring your children, finding safe ways to kind of create relationships with your children and empower them and build up their confidence. We also say it's really important you communicate with the right people at school and that you go into those meetings equipped to have a conversation that has a positive outcome, because it's so easy to get upset and so easy to get angry. And, take a friend in if you're worried about that. Write down what you want to say and what you'd like to happen. And, where it's really critical and unfortunately, some children can be really physically bullied or quite violently bullied. By all means, put safeguarding processes in place or call the police. If it's, there are certain aspects like sharing images online and violence online that are a criminal offence. So depending on the severity of it, it's important to kind of bring the right people into the room when you need to champion your child. But again, always just believe in your children and believe the story that they're telling you and try and respond to that. But think calmly and clearly. That there's a small number of children that do have counselling support because it can be traumatic if you are impacted quite severely by bullying. But I'd say for the majority, situation can be supported and helped and can be changed with the right approach. And working is really important that parents, schools, community groups, and the children work together.
Yeah, and we see this a lot, and you see a lot of people online, and they'll put their grievances online, and you'll see them, and they'll go in really angry. And the amount of people I have contact me or friends, or they might have been children that I used to coach rugby and things like this, and they go, "Oh, I want to go down to school, and I'm really angry." It's like, but you're not. The problem is you're not going to get anywhere, because actually there's just everyone puts their defences up. And then we forget who's the important one, which is the child in the middle. And the amount of times I see this and I hear this, it is just for me. All I've ever said, just keep calm. You've got to work with the school.
Yeah,
you have to, because that's the only way it's going to work.
And it can be really hard, to see your children in pain emotionally.
Yeah.
To see them scared to go into school or to do sporting activities or wherever the bullying's taking place. Scared to go online. But it is really important to remember it's a snapshot in time. It hopefully shouldn't. And take help with you. Take a trusted friend with you. Write down what your thoughts and feelings are in a letter or an email, and role model the way in which you'd like your children to be treated. The other thing to remember, and this is controversial, but children who are doing the bullying behaviour, and let's remember they are children as well, are often doing so because of some kind of traumatic experience or unmet emotional need themselves, or they've had those kind of behaviours role modeled to them by others. So it's important not to get stuck in that cycle of abusive responses to a kind of situation, and to see what can be done. But it can be, it's really hard as a parent. And I've spoken to professionals who've said it's okay saying one thing when you're a professional, but actually when it happens to you as a parent, you just want to wrap your child up in cotton wool, tell them they don't have to go to school anymore, and ban the other people from going to school, and then they can go back. If only it was as easy as that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way, though. So, as a charity, whereabouts are you at the charity at the minute? What have you got? Some exciting plans over the next couple of years that you're looking at, or any little things that you can share about, maybe a new direction or anything like that you're looking at the minute?
Yeah, so we're really excited. We were established in 1985, so we've become 40 next year.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's why I talk about growing up with the charity sector as well. I feel like the charity's growing alongside me as well. The charity is not statutory funded in any way. So, obviously that's one of the biggest challenges for us in any kind of piece of work we do. But post-pandemic, we, as a charity, like most charities did, moved all of our provision from face to online, and still deliver a lot of our work online. But we've got a model where we use associate trainers in regions and localities to deliver our face-to-face work. The exciting thing for us now is, that kind of, that period of change is now settling down a little. But obviously, we've recently refreshed our strategy and thought about, well, what's the world look like for children and young people? It's changed so much, Dom. We can talk about cyberbullying, we can talk about online, but generally, it's a really challenging place to be a young person nowadays. And so, we're adapting to respond to that ourselves. So what's exciting that's coming up is we want to develop a model so that we go in earlier. So currently we work mostly with children over 8. It's quite natural for schools to start bringing people into the school 8 upwards to think about kindness, compassion, etc. We're thinking about what can we do earlier on. And I've got another hat on where I'm trustee of PACEY, which is the Early Years Professional Association of Childcare and Early Years. Okay. And it's really important that we build those kind, compassionate human beings as early as possible, and tell them about bullying behaviours earlier on. We also would really love to do more work in clubs and community groups, because, as we mentioned, children don't just live at school. They might spend sort of a percentage of the day in school, but especially with working parents now, children go to clubs after school, before school. So, I'd love to work more with sports clubs and community groups. We'll be developing our kind of youth model far more there. We do quite a lot of workshops for volunteers who work in coaching kind of roles, because actually they've got the gift of really being able to help make the culture of a community far safer, and they've got eyes and ears on the ground, which are much different to a teacher, and they hear things and they know what's going on. So we'd love to do more of that. And another area we'd love to kind of develop more is our youth voice. So I'm keen, I've got a children's rights background as well. I'm keen to bring in children's voice and to understand from the child's and young person's perspective more about what they're experiencing, and share those experiences and what needs to change in our school system or in our policy work around keeping children safe from bullying. So there's quite a lot of change at the minute, quite a lot of exciting stuff to come up. And, we're hopeful that having a 40th year next year will give us the platform to really profile bullying.
Is there going to be a big celebration for hitting the 40?
Wouldn't that be lovely? I think what we'll do is a series of stuff throughout the year, because we've got so many different audiences that we'd love to work with. That I think it would be great to do a series of workshops, roadshows, events, all things to raise the profile of Kidscape and voices of children that have been bullied. And we've got some fantastic challenges. We team up with an organisation called Ultra Challenge.
Okay.
You can, if you are inclined to do so, if you're a runner, a walker, you can support Kidscape by signing up to your personal challenge and fundraise for us. So we'd love to promote those more next year as well, because we have, for example, recently had an amazing guy who's been to the South Pole, did an exhibition. Josh Braid went to the South Pole for Kidscape and another charity and raised 50 grand. I mean, that's just awesome. The difference he's made. Again, his own lived experience, moving him to do that as an adult. But, we are so grateful. Those kind of people, he's just raised the profile so much in terms of the corporate world that he works in as well. He works for Knight Frank, which is a big property development organization in London. So, there's so many different backgrounds of people that we work with. I think a nice series of events next year would be great fun.
Yeah, I love the sound of that. Anything you want me involved in, just let me know. Because it is a passion, because I've been there, because I've seen, even to the point of I was involved in a mental health campaign a few years ago and did a little bit on radio and did some other talks. And I brought a young person in who was at the time now, must have been about probably maybe late 20s, early 30s, probably early 30s. And basically he came on and went, well, if it wasn't for you as my sports coach, I would be on a different path. Because again, you gave me that sense of belonging. You gave me that sense of who I am. And you and another coach kept me on the right path. And as you say, I think this is so important to get involved in community clubs, to get involved in these other organisations, because actually they may be more of a role model than the teacher.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, they feel safe there.
Yeah, it's about that connection to people that you feel safe. As you know, if you've got a trusted adult in your life, it can change the outcome of your life chances incredibly. And that's our gift as a national charity, is having local supporters and local ambassadors and people trained in anti-bullying techniques on the ground in local communities. That, we're an extended team of hundreds of people then, aren't we, rather than just a small charity. And you're exactly right that, you do have the opportunity when you're in those like-minded groups of young people to talk to children and young people about, through rugby, through dance, whatever the avenue of support is, rather than being in that hostile place that they feel unsafe, where the incidents are happening. And people that know me, Dom, are probably going to be screaming at you, going, "You shouldn't have said, you're not meant to help, because Paula will take you up." No, I definitely will take you up on that. And anybody listening that wants to get involved, especially with our big year next year, to get in touch with me, that's not a problem. There are plenty of things to be done and plenty of ways to help.
I'm sure
whether it's
there
time,
are.
whether it's resources, whether it's connections. There's always ways people can help. Yeah.
And I think that sort of leads me on to the last bit. So you sort of touched on it then. If someone was listening to you now, what's the one action you'd ask them to do right now?
So I carry around this quote with me from a parent that called our parent advice line. And she says, "I really don't know whether our daughter would still be living with us or even be alive if we'd not received the timely support we did. We can't thank you enough." What I would ask people to do is just promote kindness and compassion. Everybody's got the gift to do that. You don't have to be a charity worker to do that. Listen to children, hear what they're saying, but really promote that kindness and compassion in everything you do, whether that's at work, whether that's at school, think about your behaviours and how they impact on other people. Because actually, if we all did that, we wouldn't even need charities like ours, would we? So that's my call to action.
Yeah, incredible. And I think people ask why we're so busy and what we do. And I said, well, actually, the reason we're busy is because things aren't quite what they should be. And, there's areas of, I work in county lines, I work with mental health, I work in obviously the SEND and disability arena. But actually, things aren't quite what they should be. And exactly the same for yourselves, the incredible work that you guys do. Actually, it's so needed. And I don't think it's ever been more needed than right now.
Oh, I completely agree. And I've worked in family support on the Gurnos estate in Merthyr. I've worked with Bernardo's in mental health, and we've worked in county lines in sexual exploitation and in some very universal services like parenting. The impact of poverty and all the other crises that are happening in people's lives obviously really impact on the way people are behaving and the way they can respond to things and their ability to kind of self-help and navigate through life's challenges. Everybody's facing challenges in life at the moment, regardless of your background. And so, having that opportunity to make a difference yourself by the way in which you behave is huge. Opportunity to signpost people to Kidscape if they need help with bullying is another great opportunity and gift that you can have available in your toolbox, or indeed, come on board and help support our work in some way through fundraising or through volunteering. We will gladly take people's expertise and time as well. So thank you for the opportunity of raising the profile, Dom.
No, not a problem at all. Thank you from me. Thank you from everyone out there. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for the work that Kidscape are doing and will be doing in the future. For those who want to get in touch, where can they find you and the charity?
So our website is www.kidscape.org.uk. Really easy to navigate. It will come up as Help with Bullying. I'm on LinkedIn as Paula Timms. We also have an Instagram and a Facebook page as Kidscape, but also I've got my own CEO Kidscape Instagram account as well, which my DMs are always open. So please do just get in touch.
Amazing. Paula,
and you never know, we might even get into this century and get on TikTok by next year as well.
Oh, is that one of these new things that you're looking at? Is this one of the new challenges you're going to look at?
Well, we've recently employed a new social media assistant, and she worked at TikTok in her last role. So let's hope we get there. Because actually, the number of children that say they learn everything they know
off TikTok. Yeah, doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, got to get on there. Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. It's flown by. It's been an incredible time to have a chat with you. Thank you for everyone for tuning in and listening in. This is the Charity Connector. I'm your host, Dom Fenton, and I will see you next time. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.